First half of the season is over. Let's start previewing part 2.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all for listening, and please hit that like and subscribe button. You're going to get daily Boston College podcasts from me, the one you trust. So on today's show, we're getting ready for part 2 of our season, and we have the first 6 in. I'm going to give you a preview of review of the first 6 and a preview of and predictions for the final 6. Lots to talk about. It's a football-centric episode. If you want hockey talk, I know some of you are always looking for it, make sure you check out yesterday's episode. We had BC Hockey Blogger on. I think you'll love that episode. It's up on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Now, so BC sits at 4-2. And if you were to say before the beginning of the season that Boston College heading into their bye week was 4-2, I think most people would say they were ecstatic. You would have been ecstatic unless you're a real maroon and golder that, just was really, really on top of that. I think this is what most people were hoping for. Now, to be fair, I get the frustrations. Losing to Virginia the way that BC lost that game is frustrating. They should be 5-1. If they had played a complete game, they would have beaten Virginia, but they blew that game. That's on BC. They messed that one up. That's on them. So, when we're looking at the first half of the season, it's a tale of 6 games. It's a tale of a hot start, beating Florida State. And yes, hindsight is 2020, but remember how awesome that game was. You beat and I know they were not top 10 very long after that, but you beat a top 10 team on the road, a team that had, playoff aspirations. And yes, I know that they're not that anymore, but it was such a big win. You add in, you blew the doors off Duquesne. You come back and you beat Michigan and Western Kentucky. There's some exciting wins in there. You held your own against Missouri. And then there's a disappointing loss against Virginia. So out of all these games, really, there's only one really kind of disappointing aspect of the season. It's that, and unfortunately, and I was texting Mitchell Wolf of Eagle Insider on this one, it had to be the game before the bye week. Like, I was dreading having to do this podcast if BC was going to lose, because that means 10, 12 days of people just belly aching and complaining. And I get it. It stunk, but college football is such a small sample size that every game is amplified to like the nth degree. And so you all, remember the last game, and the last game stunk. So that's now tinted everything. But I think there's points to be made about this season. And I think so far, the first 6 games have taught us some things about the team and has brought up some questions about where this team is going and what issues could be an issue for the second part of the season. Let's start with the offense. Now, you start this season off by running the ball down Florida State's throat. You ran for over 200 yards. You had Thomas Castellanos running for 70, and they could have run for a lot more. They left 14 points off the board on turnovers and a kneel down at the end of the game. I am a petty person. I wish they ran it in just because I hate Florida State. And I've covered this team long enough to watch them dig up our turf and do all this crap. I kind of wish they just ran it in for an extra touchdown, but that's just me. I'm a petty person. So you have that game. From there, you have Duquesne. That offense, whatever. You could have the worst offense in the world against an FCS school, and you could put up 40 plus points, unless you're Jeff Hafley, and then you can't. But every other team should be able to do that, right? You get all that. And then I was just I was doing some research. The next 3 games, BC is unable to put up 300 yards of offense. They put up 300 yards of offense against Virginia, but then they also put up a big fat trio of turnovers, which bit them in the bud. I worry right now about the identity of this offense. You are able to run the football, but you don't do it consistently enough. Against Virginia, you were running the ball and then you stopped. Against Western Kentucky, it took them to start running the ball for their offense to get going. Against Michigan State, they were able to run the ball and then they stopped. The run game should be your identity. I know Bill O'Brien and Will Long really want this team to throw the ball more. But I really do believe that this identity and what makes this team good is what you did to Florida State. Bludgeon teams to death with that. Just keep running the ball down their throat. Thomas Castellanos in that game had 14 rushes, which was about at his average from last year under Halfley. And he looked like Thomas Castellanos from last year in terms of his running. Since then, I think he's run for 11 total yards. Or like, he's averaging like 2 yards a game or something crazy. It's bad. He needs to be doing that. Now on Wednesday's press conference on the Zoom call, Bill O'Brien says he doesn't want to take away from what makes him special. Kind of feels like he has. And I don't know what's going on with that. We talked about that on Monday's show. But you need to get him running the ball. And you need Turbo, Trayshawn Ward, and Kai being the guys that touch the ball the most. Because they're going to open up the offense for guys like Lewis Bond and Jada McGowan and, even Jerron Bradley and guys like that, Reed Harris. You can't be relying on the I just don't feel it. I don't feel maybe they'll fix it. But for me, I look at what the strength of this team is and it's running. The offensive line isn't perfect, but they are able to do it when they want to. Florida State had a pretty good defensive line. They're not great, they got athletes there. I feel like BC should be able to do that. Now you're going to have teams load up the box, and they have been loading up the box, and that's been slowing things down. That's when Thomas Castellanos should be able to do some things. You should be able to run him more. And it's going to be more than just QB power. You got to be able to do some things with him and let him do some things. They go to that read option a lot, but every time they pull it, it seems like it's going to the running back. Castellanos right now is averaging about 10 carries per game. He needs to be about 15. You need for this offense to click. That's where it's going to need to be. And so the offense, they have not been consistent enough. They have not put up enough points. They've not put the defense in the place that they need to be. It feels like they've taken a step back from last year, honestly. And they need to get back to what they do best, which is run the football. And so I want to see this offense change a little bit in the second half. Now, in the second segment, I want to talk about this defense. What have they been doing right? What have they been doing wrong? We'll get into all of that in just a moment. Game Time is the place to go if you want to get tickets for your next game, concert, theater, outing, wherever you want to go that involves getting tickets. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live event easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff so you get incredible deals on great seats and you don't have to waste time. Our time is valuable. My time is valuable. You'd be surprised it is. Game Time is the way I go, so I don't have to waste time because that's what I need. You can use the app to find your seat. They have the super price guarantee where your tickets are going to be guaranteed to be the lowest price. Or you'll be credited with 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Welcome back. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. And if you're a college football nut like I am, and you guys know me, I'm a college football nut, you need to check out the Locked On College Football podcast with Spencer McLaughlin. They go through all the daily big events that are going on. And with NIL, the playoffs, bowl projections, they've got a ton of stuff to talk about. I loved listening to them talk about Vanderbilt stunning Alabama. Thinking to myself, man, I wish BC could do that again soon. Not to Bama, but a top 10 team. So check out Locked On College Football on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, The defense. The defense definitely did not have their best game on Saturday against Virginia. As we talked with Mitchell Wolf on an earlier episode this week, the running defense let them down. They just were not doing what they usually do, which is slowing down the run. Now, the defense has been doing pretty well. They're one of the top teams in the country. I believe they are in the top 20 in terms of points allowed. If I were to find their scoring defense, they're 22. They've allowed 17.2 points per game. They've been doing well there. They also have a superstar in the making, and superstar Donovan Ezeiruaku, who's putting together what could be an All-American season. He leads the country with 9 sacks. He leads the country in pressures. He has been everywhere, and he has been the most valuable player on this team, offense or defense, without a doubt. You have him going. You've been able to force turnovers, other than the Virginia game, which I thought would be a game where BC would be able to force some turnovers. Anthony Calandria has been notorious with that. Didn't happen. Other games, you've been able to do it. You get that big strip sack against Western Kentucky. You forced DJU to make that interception to Max Tucker. You had Max Tucker with the interception against Michigan State. You had all these big turnovers. They've been able to do that. And Bill O'Brien said on Wednesday that, turnovers are a big thing that they look for. They practice that at practice. They do ball stripping drills and they do work on trying to get interceptions. That's great. That's something I thought after last year that it would be something that I thought BC needed to really improve upon, because you looked at what BC did in terms of turnovers last year. They were, I'm pulling it up right now, 72nd in turnovers, turnover gains last year. Right now, they are 15th. So clearly, they're doing a better job there. Pass rush is an issue. And you may say to yourself, how do you have one of the greatest pass rushers in the country, in Donovan Ezeiruaku, and still have pass rushing as an issue? But it is. Mitchell Wolf on our show the other day had mentioned that BC has a very low pass rush success rate. They're not able to sack the quarterback. I believe, if I looked it up earlier today, BC has 12 sacks. Donovan Ezeiruaku has 9. That means everyone else has 3 total. That's not good. You need more guys to step up. Neto Ekpala has been good at times. He's had 2 games where he's had 5 pressures, which is good. But he's also had a whole bunch of games where he's had 1 or 2. That's not good. That doesn't cut it. And George Rooks is not really a strong pass rusher, and that's not really what Cam Horsley does either. So this is going to be something that Tim Lewis in this off week has to figure out how this team can up that number, because yes, it's great to have a guy like Donovan Ezeiruaku. And believe me, I am not looking a gift horse in the mouth here, because having a stud defensive end is something Boston College has lacked since Zach Allen. They haven't had and even I think Donovan Ezeiruaku is even better than he was. This has been a long time, and it's great to see that they have that. But they need to get pressure elsewhere. Additionally, they need to get the heck off the field. Their third down defense last week was awful. And if that becomes a trend, that's going to be tough for this team to overcome. You got to be able to get off the field on third down, especially those third and longs. Those were just brutal to watch. You can't give cushions. You got to play tough and force them to do it. Don't worry about them beating you on a play and play with the soft coverage stuff. Just go at them hard and see if they can do it. If they do it, you tip your hat and you move on. But if you give it to them, that's on you. That's just sloppy, wimpy coaching. Just battle them, man. So I'm getting myself amped up here. Now, improvements as well. I've really enjoyed the play of Cam Arnold. After 2 years where I was like, I don't know if this is the right linebacker, if they need to, you guys all, when we did all our transfer portal talk, kept going, you need a new linebacker. You need more linebackers. You need more linebackers. I think Cam and Davion Crouch have been pretty good. I think you've got what you need there. Beyond that, maybe you could use a few guys that now, we haven't seen a ton out of Sione Hala, and Owen McGowan is like Vinny DePalma light. That I could argue with you, and I could say you got a point there, but I think they've been okay. But The fact that BC is only allowing 17 points per game is a massive tip of the cap to the defense, because last year this defense was a mess. There was no identity. Right now you have identity. You got Donovan Ezeiruaku flying all over the place out there. That gives you some identity right there. But they've been playing tough. A bend don't break defense, I think, is what this defense should be. Jeff Hafley, he played much more aggressively, and when you don't have the athletes to do that, you get burned. And he got burned a lot because BC is BC. You're not going to get the athletes that you're going to get at Florida State or Louisville. Now, this bend don't break is forcing college players who are apt to make mistakes to be perfect and march down the field. And BC has the third best scoring defense in terms of red zone touchdown percentage. That means when teams get into the red zone, BC has the third best defense in preventing touchdowns in the red zone. That's a great stat. That's a very good stat. And that's why you see teams like, even against Virginia, look at the scores Virginia made. Every time they got to the red zone, I don't think they scored a touchdown. They had that long pass over Ashton McShane, who was a true freshman, against Malachi Fields. What are you going to do? But you also had the other one was a scoop and score. Everything else was field goals. That's good defense. I know you may not be happy that they couldn't get off the field, but the fact that you let up one touchdown and a whole bunch of field goals, that's good defense. It is. Like, you're not going to have the big bad Bears of '86 that are going to not allow any points when you're Boston College, but you're playing much, much better now. And that defense is going to put this team in position to win in the future. Now, in our final segment, I want to talk about our predictions for the final 6 games of the season. You're going to want to hear my thoughts of that in just a moment. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out our latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Patriots against the Texans this week. I've seen the numbers of what the Texans have done to opposing quarterbacks, and I don't really have a lot of faith that Drake May is going to do very well on this one. So maybe you're going to be like me and fade on the Patriots. If you want to, you get yourself started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black. We're wrapping things up here, talking about, we just reviewed the first 6 games. Now let's preview the final 6. And what's really funny about this is, going into the season, I looked at the back end of the season and said, I like the way that the schedule is shaping up. You got a Syracuse team, I thought, again, this is preseason, that I thought was going to be suspect. I knew UNC would probably be falling apart. I had no faith in Pitt. You had SMU, who is making the jump to a Power 5 program. So I looked at all these games and I said, if BC can hold it together this first half of the season, this second half is going to be golden. But that's the joy of college football, because they basically flipped the whole thing. Now, the first half of the season looked more easy, and the second half looks a lot harder, because you've got a road game against Virginia Tech. This game does not change from when the season started to now. It still looks the same. It looks daunting. You're playing with Blacksburg at night. Chiron Drones is figuring things out. I don't have a lot of faith in this one. I still think Boston College is probably going to lose this game. I just do. I just think it's a tough one. It's going to be a real hard battle for them. This is where I think things could get interesting. You have a Friday night game against Louisville. And Louisville is not the same Louisville that we saw last year. They're just not. They've lost 2 games, both of them are ranked teams, to SMU and Notre Dame. Tyler Show is okay. He's not the quarterback they had last year. BC on a night game is a different beast. And I think this Louisville team is suspect. I think BC is going to win this one. I think this is going to be their shock. Louisville was ranked, but they're not anymore. They're playing Virginia this weekend, so you give us a better idea of what they're like if they go out there and just smack around Virginia. Maybe we have a different discussion next week. But I think BC can win that one. So there's 1-1. Then they host Syracuse. And I'm not ready to take my humble juice yet on this one, because if you listen to Summer Talk, I know there's going to be Syracuse fans listening to this right now. I talk smack about them all summer. I talked about Fran Brown all summer. I talked about Kyle McCord. And Kyle McCord has shut me up. He's playing well. I can't say anything else about that. He's playing very well. That being said, it's at home. It's at BC. I I'm going to still pick BC to win this one. I'm not going to back down on this one yet. Hopefully, Amari Jackson's going to be healthy enough for this game. They need their corners against the Syracuse team. But I've seen Syracuse make mistakes. They're not perfect, and I think they could win this one. So I'm going to say they're going to be 2-1. Then they play SMU, and it's on the road. SMU's a lot better than they were last year. Kevin Jennings, that played against BC in the Fenway Bowl, is a lot different than he was last year. I don't think BC's winning this. So 2-2. That's going to put them at 6-4. They're bowl eligible at this point. Then they play UNC. UNC has looked better, but they're going to turn back into pumpkins, I think. So I'm going to pick. I don't have any faith in Mac Brown in November. So I'm going to pick BC to win that one and go to 7-5, 7-4, and then Pitt. It's at home, but it's at BC during the break. I don't know. It's a coin flip game. Eli Holstein looks pretty good right now. We'll have to wait and see with that one. I'm going to go that they're going to be 7-5. That's my pick. 7-5. Again, I think that's what folks were hoping for. You win a bowl game, you go 8-5. I mean, it's not the best outcome, but again, a lot of this is going to depend on how this offense can figure things out. If the offense continues to struggle, it's going to be a tough going for a lot of these games. But if they can get Thomas Castellanos back into moving this football, things can change, and anything can change. They just had a week off. They could figure things out. So we'll have to wait and see. So 7-5. What do you think? Go into my comment section. Tell me what your thoughts are. And thank you all for listening to Locked On Boston College. We'll be back again tomorrow. And I apologize. I was going to have Brett Ryder on, but our schedules did not match up. And I've got a bug going around my house and my kids are sick. So I couldn't record as late as I usually do. And hopefully we'll be back on with him at some point. But on Friday's show, we'll have Mitchell Wolf on. We're going to talk about some of his thoughts going into the second half of the season. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell, too, so you know when our shows are premiering and that you don't miss another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.